So the problem today with research is doesn't mean anything anymore.
Paid advertising.
Well, it could be any one of a number of things. So as I said, if somebody is diabetic and they're looking for credible information, they know on Google they're going to find a mix, and they find the government-funded diabetic organization that says you can't reverse diabetes, they think they research.
Yeah,
they
let's
really
actually
do.
talk
It
about
seems
that.
credible.
Because that's important. You know, the majority of the budget of the Food and Drug Administration comes from pharmaceutical companies. And the reason is that in order to get your drugs approved, you have to go through trials, but then you have to pay the agency for them to review the trials that you do. And that's where their budget comes from. And all of the funding to do the studies, so like the NIH funding that may be done at the universities, that's all coming from big pharma too. So it's all very incestuous because the people funding the studies and the people putting the information out there and then the regulatory agencies who are supposed to be the watchdogs, they're all funded by the pharmaceutical companies who want to make a profit off of the product. So it's really a broken system. And we know it's a broken system because we're sick as a population.
I'm going to go with a stronger word than broken, corrupt.
Correct. It's corrupt.
Because Food and Drug Administration is funded by food and drug companies.
Right.
Every food company takes advantage of loopholes in the labeling laws that allow people to believe things about the packaged foods that are not true. So it works on both ends, food and drug. And we look to this agency to protect us when the truth is, in a sense, it's a marketing arm of the food and drug companies finding creative ways to draw people in.
Yeah.
So,
and it wasn't like that originally. So the original act to create the Food and Drug Administration had to do with the meatpacking industry in Chicago. So when they first brought that out, it was to address unsanitary conditions, and there wasn't this kind of level of corruption. But then you start getting lobbying, and it just, over time, the agency has become corrupt and incestuous, meaning that the head people of the FDA leave the FDA, go back to pharma, and vice versa.
And I'm not going to ask you to, but you could name some of those people by name.
100%, yeah. So it's...
I mean, this is not just a theory, this is fact.
Oh, this is 100%. And it's accepted because, I mean, sometimes you even have the media, which, by the way, the media is also working for pharma because they're bought off. So, you used to have journalists who would investigate and report. And even if you look at some of the stories from the 80s, 60 Minutes used to do stories on pharma and the corruption, but they never would now. And
Every
just
commercial.
watch the ads brought to you by, and fill in the blank of whatever pharmaceutical company. And it's really not a way to health.
So going back to the kind of triggers, the PEDS, the last one is I'm going to research it. I don't even know how people can research anymore. I really think that when they come to us, they need to come with their guard down. It doesn't mean just accept everything we say.
Sure.
But bring the walls down and listen and test and pay attention and look to us to see if we can back up the things we're saying. Every element of the metabolic reboot is grounded in actual science. It's built on 42 principles. We provide the principles for people.
Right.
You're the one who can evaluate what is research, what is real, what isn't. What are people finding in the field?
Right.
So I don't even know how people can research anymore. I really don't. Honestly, so let me give you an example. There is a show. Let me see if I can get this up on the screen.
While you get that up, I was just going to say, because a lot of times people are following.
I hope I can get it up.
It's a
Is there a drug
separate
for that?
story. Oh. That was actually in another podcast. We did discuss what we could do for that. But they'll follow a certain personality. And say, well, this such and such personality told me I need to be carnivore or vegan or whatever it is. But that person is not a scientist. So, or somebody who actually has knowledge in the field, that they're just a personality on the latest social media platform. So that's not research either.
Oh, I know some of these people personally.
They're usually a hot mess. And sometimes they're coming to us to try and get their health back because they've done something that was detrimental to their health.
Yeah, I wish we could tell every story.
I know.
We can't, but we have them. All right. So there was a show on Netflix, probably still available, called You Are What You Eat.
Sure.
And when it was released, I knew it was released because lots of people who were coming in were saying, I'm going vegan.
Right.
Plant-based. I'm going plant-based. There's nothing wrong with going plant-based if you understand nutrition and you're doing it maybe for a moral or ethical reason, or you've studied it to make sure that you know how to get all the nutrients that you need and all the nutrients that would be optimal from plant-based foods. So this was kind of a genius study. They took twins, identical twins.
Right.
And with each pair of twins, one of them ate omnivore, which was plant and meat, and the other only ate plant-based.
Right.
Twins. So here are the conclusions. The plant eaters dropped their LDL by 10 to 15%.
Okay.
That probably doesn't surprise you.
Right.
Didn't you tell me to turn off my phone before we started?
I did.
I'm sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off before we started, so I'll call you back after the podcast. Sorry about that. All right, I'll turn off the...
Too late.
Yeah. Plant eaters dropped 10 to 15% of their bad cholesterol.
Okay.
So this is a conclusion. Insulin dropped in the plant eaters. Body weight dropped by 3%. Now, just looking at this, it makes a very strong argument for plant eating is better if we're considering health.
Right.
So I went and looked. It was an actual study. So the study was not the show. The show was based on the study. So I pulled up the study that was published in JAMA, and I found some interesting things. HDL was higher in the meat eaters.
Okay.
HDL is the good cholesterol. So at the very least, they reported just a piece.
Partial information. Okay.
We could do a whole long talk about cholesterol and why it's not as scary as people think. But what we
how
do know
it's
is
not related to heart disease at all?
right.
Right.
But what we do know is HDL is good and HDL is protective.
Sure.
They also made the case that insulin dropped. But when we look at blood glucose, didn't change.
Same.
So as we look deeper and deeper at the study, it appears, I'll say, skewed in the way it was reported. And I would guess there's an agenda.
Absolutely.
The agenda is we're going to put together a 90-minute propaganda piece to scare people away from eating meat.
Right.
And the one thing that really frustrates me about all of these studies that relate to vegan or vegetarian versus plant versus meat eaters is they never separate out grass-fed. I've yet to see a study where they look at grass-fed meat eaters as opposed to plant eaters. Also, the vegan meals were smaller in size and calories. So there was no looking at body composition. There was only looking at body weight. Body weight dropped by 3%, which it would if you're cutting calories.
Sure.
So I'm not arguing that nobody should be plant-based. I'm just saying research doesn't give you what you're looking for because even the way it's reported is skewed. This is based on a research study, but it was not the research study.
And how many people were in that study?
I don't remember. I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah.
But we can pull it up in November 2023.
So this is something else interesting that I learned doing research. Oftentimes, my endpoints were delivered to me by a board of directors. Here's the outcome we need. Now design a study.
Before the study is done.
Before the study even started.
They say, prove this thing.
This is the outcome we need. So make the study. And so then we did.
I want to make one more point because these slides that I'm showing right now, they're from a presentation that I do. And in that presentation, I talk about Pritikin. I don't know if you remember Pritikin.
I do, yeah.
But in the 80s, it was the go-to for people who had heart attacks. And really, it was eat vegetables, eat things that are tasteless, don't eat any kind of meat, don't eat any foods that are in any way high in fat. And you know who went to Pritikin? People who were afraid that they were going to die. That's
Sure.
who went to Pritikin. And I was looking for, now here we are 40 years later, outcomes now. Like what happened to those people? And I really couldn't find very much. But here's what I found interesting. Dr. Atkins, who's no longer with us, neither of them, Pritikin or Atkins, are with
Sure.
us. I did an on-the-air debate with Dr. Atkins, and he stormed out of the studio. He got very frustrated with what I was asking him.
Sure.
But both of them, Pritikin and Atkins, died at 69 years old.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is they were both professing heart health
And they both have
with
short-
opposite approaches, right?
Right.
I mean, Atkins was saying put butter on your steak,
Yeah.
and Pritikin was saying never eat butter, never eat steak. So the truth is not in the extremes.
Never is.
And I just think people need to trust experts. I'm saying we're the only experts, not by a long shot, but I'm saying it's easy to get into a headspin. And a part of what we do with our programs is we give people clarity, and we teach them to think and make sense out of things, and ultimately judge us by the outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can probably keep going forever and ever and ever, which is why it's good that we'll do another podcast next week.
See you then.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.